Welcome to This Explainer. You know, we often think of history as this rigid, dusty set of facts, right? But honestly, it's usually written by the loudest gossips, the bitterest enemies, or sometimes just by sheer accident. Today, we're diving into 4 wildly misunderstood true stories, and they all share one epic theme: surviving absolutely terrible PR.
So I've got a question for you. What in the world do a Renaissance duchess, a Roman charioteer, an ancient weed have in common? Well, the answer is that every single one of their legacies has been entirely hijacked. We're talking centuries of rumor, myth, and serious political spin. So we're going to set the record straight and uncover the fascinating realities hiding behind the fiction. Here is our agenda for today. 1. The secret history of cannabis. 2. The truth about Lucrezia Borgia. 3. Rome's deadly Circus Maximus. And 4. The defiant Eleanor of Aquitaine.
Section 1. The secret history of cannabis, from ancient campfires to global empire. We're starting things off not with a conquering hero, but with a seriously scrappy plant that essentially acted as the Swiss Army knife of the ancient world. If we jump back to 5000 BCE in Siberia, early humans weren't looking to get high. They were just using hemp fibers for ropes and clothes. But, someone eventually tossed it on a campfire and, well, the legend began. By 2700 BCE, Chinese Emperor Shennong was officially documenting its uses. Fast forward to 1500 BCE in India, and it's evolved into a sacred drink called bhang, which was basically this divine, vibrating milkshake used to toast the god Shiva. And by 1000 BCE, the Scythian nomads in Central Asia were literally throwing hemp seeds onto hot stones inside sealed tents. I mean, they created the ancient equivalent of a hotbox. The evolution here is just wild.
But what's really fascinating here is how these early civilizations viewed this plant purely as medicine. Ancient Chinese texts read almost like an ancient Yelp review for herbs. They praised it for easing joint pain, treating severe inflammation, and, ironically enough, curing forgetfulness. But my absolute favorite has to be ancient Egypt. Midwives and priests actually prescribed it for curing gout and literally calming a bad temper. Honestly, that prescription right there probably saved a few pharaohs from starting full-blown wars for sure.
So you might be wondering, how does this incredibly practical medicinal plant get such a terrible reputation? Well, the massive PR problem all started with the word assassin. During the Middle Ages, there was this secretive Persian sect called the Nizari Ismailis. They were brilliant scholars and engineers, but their enemies spread a vicious rumor that they were a cult of drug-fueled killers who smoked hashish before going on missions. And that's where we get the term hashishin, which eventually morphed into assassin. Now, there's absolutely zero evidence they actually did this, but the medieval gossip spread like wildfire, and it permanently linked the plant to shadowy violence in the Western mind. Section 2. The truth about Lucrezia Borgia, the Vatican's scandalous daughter. All right, leaving the mountains of Persia for the perfumed cesspool of Renaissance Rome, we meet history's all-time favorite scapegoat. Now, modern pop culture and writers like Victor Hugo really push this Black Widow myth of Lucrezia. They painted her as an incestuous seductress, a Vatican serpent, and a ruthless poisoner walking around with a hollow ring full of arsenic. But the historical reality, vastly different. She was actually a brilliant political pawn, constantly traded by her father, Pope Alexander VI, and her, frankly, homicidal brother Cesare. She was never a poisoner. She was a survivor trapped in a family of vipers who eventually became a highly skilled diplomat and the deeply pious, respected Duchess of Ferrara. Her early life was just marked by sheer exhaustion. Think about this. At age 12, she's already betrothed, treated like a walking political treaty. At 14, she's married off to Giovanni Sforza to cement an alliance, only for her father to awkwardly annul it the second the political winds shifted. Then, at 17, she marries Alfonso of Aragon, a guy she actually likes, but her brother, Cesare, decides he's politically inconvenient and literally has him murdered. It wasn't until age 22, when she became the Duchess of Ferrara, that she finally managed to rebuild her reputation, escape her family's toxic shadow, and take control of her own destiny. If you really want to know who the true Lucrezia was, just listen to this quote. After the tragic death of her 12-year-old son, she wrote, "I'm left with no comfort, except the prayers I whisper at dawn." Her surviving letters don't show us a venomous villain. Not at all. They reveal a woman of profound melancholy, intelligence, and grace. She endured unimaginable constant tragedy, simply outlived the terrible men around her, and found her peace in quiet devotion.
It's just a stark reminder of how easily a woman's survival can be weaponized into a myth of wickedness by the men who write the history books.
Section 3. Rome's deadly Circus Maximus, the pulse of an empire.
Now we leave the quiet salons of the Renaissance for the absolute, deafening, dust-choked roar of ancient Rome. 200,000. Let that number sink in. On race days, half the entire city of Rome packed shoulder to shoulder into this sun-bleached colossus. You've got people breathing in dust and sweat, gambling their life savings, and screaming at the top of their lungs. The Circus Maximus was so much more than just an arena. It was literally the beating pulse of the empire.
And get this, the crowd wasn't just cheering for the athletes, they were cheering for their specific tribe. The circus was fiercely divided into 4 main factions. It operated a lot like modern soccer hooliganism mixed with deep political tribalism. You had the Reds representing the fiery working classes, the Whites for the traditionalist old money, the Greens for the cunning merchants, and the Blues for the untouchable Senate elite. People didn't just casually wear these colors, they literally rioted in the streets, burned down neighborhoods, and occasionally even bribed officials or poisoned horses over them. The emperors knew this for a fact. You controlled the factions, you controlled the mob.
But what's absolutely fascinating is the status of the drivers themselves. Charioteers were usually low-born slaves, and yet they became the ultimate rock stars of the ancient world. Take Gaius Appius Diocles, for example. He raced for 24 years and amassed a fortune equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars today. I mean, he could have bought an entire city. In a society as rigidly hierarchical as Rome, it is wild that a slave mastering a chariot could rise higher in the public's adoration than a senator or a conquering general.
But, as you might guess, this godlike glory came with a brutal price. These drivers were strapped into lightweight wooden death traps. The absolute most dangerous part of the track was the spina, the central turning posts. If they clipped those posts, it resulted in what the Romans called naufragia, which literally translates to spectacular, fatal shipwrecks. Chariots would shatter, and drivers would be dragged by their own horses. And the darkest part? Those 200,000 fans who had placed massive, life-ruining bets often cheered louder for the destruction than they did for the actual victory. Legendary drivers like Scorpus might win 2,000 races, but they'd be dead by the age of 26.
Section 4. The defiant Eleanor of Aquitaine, Queen, Prisoner, Legend. For our final chapter, we leave the sands of Rome and travel to the 12th century to meet a woman who completely redefined what it meant to hold power in a world ruled by swords. Eleanor's escalation of power is simply mind-blowing. First, she's Queen of France, married to Louis VII, but finding her pious husband pretty dull, she maneuvers in annulment and marries Henry II, becoming Queen of England. When Henry later tries to sideline her, she doesn't just get mad, she backs a massive military rebellion against him, using their own sons. Because of this, Henry locks her away as a prisoner for 16 years. But guess what? She outlives him. And at age 70, she's freed by her son, Richard the Lionheart, stepping right out of prison to essentially co-rule the massive Angevin Empire.
And her dedication to her empire was just unmatched. When Richard the Lionheart was captured and held for ransom during the Crusades, the demand was 150,000 marks. That is an astronomical sum that nearly bankrupted England. Eleanor didn't just authorize the payment from afar. This nearly 80-year-old woman personally crossed the Alps to deliver it and secure her son's release. She governed through sheer, unyielding resilience. Eleanor outlasted 2 kings, several lovers, and countless enemies. When Richard lay dying from a crossbow wound, his final words to her were, "You gave birth to kings, and kings do not die with tears." Her life was an absolute masterclass in influence. In an era where royal women were meant to be quiet pawns, she ruled through intellect, charm, and a complete refusal to ever be silenced, leaving a dynastic web that shaped Europe for centuries.
So, as we wrap up this explainer on history's wildest realities, we've seen how a plant became a global scapegoat, how a brilliant duchess was painted as a ruthless poisoner, how slaves became Roman gods in the dust of the circus, and how an imprisoned queen outmaneuvered entire empires. I'll leave you with this question to ponder.